The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
For all of our Android and iPhone users, Lewis still kind of in the Stone Age with the phones, but I do have a phone with Android on it. Make sure to get the Stitcher application. You can get the David Pakman Show on the go. And if when you download and install the application, you put in promo code DAVID, you will get entered into a chance to win $100. You will also get the show automatically set up in your favorites, which, come on, that should be the number one program that you're adding on there anyway.
Of course.
And you can also go on to Stitcher.com/David Pakman Show and register that way. Stitcher. I use it all the time, I have to say. And I barely use any apps, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I have almost no apps.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just never download any.
You got to get some good games going on there.
I have games, just not many productivity apps.
You're going to need games for the flight.
I've got a Bonsai Blast. It's like Snood.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Lewis is a big gamer. You'd think he would know. So Sir Darryl Roberts, of course, friend of the show on the All Digital Radio Network, he comes up with different premises sometimes, and he'll call TMZ and report that I may be using drugs, or he'll call a nuclear shelter place and see if he can get a nuclear shelter made for me. This time he decided to give the National Enquirer a call to give them a lead on what he thinks is a big story involving the show. Let's take a listen to Sir Darryl's latest phony phone call.
It was reported, and I can't exactly tell you where it was reported because of some legal issues right now.
Okay.
But it was reported that Osama Bin Laden was keeping up with his news by listening to the David Pakman Show. Now, yeah, I know, and I don't know exactly what this says for the David Pakman Show. I don't know whether or not it's a endorsement for the David Pakman Show. I don't know whether or not it's a strike against the David Pakman Show. But I do know that from what I hear, Osama Bin Laden subscribed to David Pakman's podcasts. And I hear that Osama Bin Laden had the couriers. You know, the couriers, when they were going back and forth, what they were actually bringing him were videotapes.
That's right. We knew about the couriers.
He was downloading. They were bringing him videotapes and DVDs of the David Pakman Show. Now, if that's true, I find that to be absolutely outrageous, and I don't know how that's going to affect the David Pakman Show, because in essence, David Pakman was cavorting with our enemy.
Exactly. But you know who's going to take the brunt of the blame, right?
Lewis,
exactly.
Yeah.
He always gets that.
Lewis is going to actually take. You know what? And okay, that's a great point. Because if anything, we need to make sure that Lewis doesn't take the brunt in this, because he didn't do anything wrong. He was just following orders from David Pakman.
We already know that the whole following orders thing is not a viable defense.
David's a tyrant.
If that were the case, it would be bogus.
Going to give a call to the National Enquirer, because I want to get this story out there from Lewis's perspective, and I want to see whether or not they're interested.
National Enquirer.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm all right. My name is Darryl. I actually work at the All Digital Radio Network.
By the way, I'm surprised. Usually Darryl has a cover. He's actually saying, I'm Darryl from All Digital Radio. So this is already a new beginnings for Darryl.
No alias.
I know that it was reported recently. I don't exactly know in what news outlet, but it was reported that one of the things about Osama bin Laden that the government doesn't want people to know was that he was actually getting videotapes and DVDs of the David Pakman Show, and that's the way that he was keeping up with the news here in the United States, and that's what was going on. And I just wanted to find out, first of all, whether or not the Enquirer is going to be covering this, and secondly, I really am I want to make sure that if they do, that his assistant, Lewis, doesn't take any of the brunt from this, because I have reason to believe, and I can even almost vouch for this. I believe that David Pakman was actually conspiring with Al-Qaeda in order to get the videotapes over to Mr. Bin Laden. And I'm not even asking for any money. This isn't even about.
By the way, you can tell when Darryl starts questioning how strong his premise is when he continues without letting the person talk. In other words, his premise goes on because he's starting to think, you know what I've said so far is not good enough to get a good response from this guy, so I'm just going to keep saying stuff. I think I've got Darryl pegged pretty well here. You don't know.
I don't know. Let's keep going.
It's more or less I'm a great American that would like to see justice done, and I actually work for the station, and I know that David knew that Mr. Bin Laden was watching his his tapes and listening to his podcast, and I even think he was complicit in getting it to him.
We probably wouldn't investigate that unless I mean, I'm sure the federal government's investigating him, right? I mean, if he was involved in providing.
That's probably I actually had not thought about that. So he'll probably get his from the federal government then.
All right, so here Darryl realizes he's reporting something that clearly is an issue of why shouldn't he be calling the police rather than the National Enquirer? So now he has to go on the defensive a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if they're investigating it, then maybe we would do it. But David Patton's not a big name for us.
Okay.
Believe me, it's not a big name for anybody. That's no surprise that we're hearing that from the National Enquirer.
There was a connection. We might, mention it in the story. I know we've done 2 already on Osama.
Okay. And I'll tell you this, I even, I'm not a big fan of David's, as you can probably tell. If ever any sort of scandal comes out, if ever you need any real dirt on David Pakman, I'm really your go-to guy. I will tell you everything that you need to know in order to bring this guy down. Because
he works for the station that you work for?
Yeah.
If you need, if you ever hear anything, I mean, we do a lot of stories, so if you ever have any story ideas, give me a call directly. Let me give you my direct line.
Oh, please, thank you.
I mean, we do pay for information. If we turn anything you tell me into a story,
oh yeah,
we throw you a check. So
okay, well that's actually
some extra income.
If I could make an extra income by bringing down David Pakman, that would be 2 blessings in one. So I'm going to keep my ear to the ground, and if I can, I don't want Lewis to be hurt in this though. But if I can find
Lewis is his assistant, you said?
Yeah, and he treats him like crap. He does it on the air. He yells at him for not wearing shoes. He really treats Lewis like crap, and Lewis is a great stand-up guy. So I don't want him hurt.
All right, well, I'll check out the station. I'll check out him and see maybe there's something there.
Thank you so much.
So Darryl's called not being the big blow-up story that I think he was hoping the National Enquirer, but certainly backing Lewis up, if nothing else.
Thank you, Darryl. And I love the shoes thing. That's hilarious.
By the way, people don't believe this. Lewis really... Do you want to just lift your foot up and just prove to people you're not wearing shoes right now? People think it's all a gag. Just
we have to leave something to the imagination here.
You don't want to show that you're in socks right now.
I am not wearing shoes. I never wear shoes when we do the show.
Right.
And Dave doesn't like it. He tried to get me to wear shoes. When we have people in studio, he tries to get me to wear shoes.
I think it's reasonable to say when we have a congressman in the studio, maybe the producer will keep his shoes on.
But you know what? I put my foot down, excuse the pun, and no shoes. I told Dave, no, I'm not going to do it.
On a serious Bin Laden note, we have poll results from how will killing Bin Laden affect Obama's approval rating long term. We had this poll up for a week on davidpakman.com. 53% of you say the increase in his approval rating will only be temporary and will fade away before the election, whereas 38% say the increase will actually last through the 2012 election. Nobody actually thinks that getting Bin Laden is going to hurt the president. I happen to agree with that. I believe that if played correctly, killing Bin Laden could help President Obama through to the 2012 election if he can get the right PR campaign around it. Whether he can do that or not remains to be seen, as we saw with health insurance. It's not a guarantee.
Yeah, but I mean, just in general, it can only be a good thing